Hello, viewers. Welcome again to the Entrepreneur's Corner. We are so excited. I'm sure you can see the corner is really improved, and it is all because of you. Entrepreneur's Corner is brought to you by Manmat Finance because we care about our entrepreneurs. And today we are going to talk about the tax issues. As usual, we go in your comments and we take note of the things that you always ask about, those things that are troubling you. And we have invited a colleague. These ones are the ones that are called the learned friends of ours. We have invited Shami. So welcome, Shami, to the Entrepreneur's Corner.
Thank you very much, Doc.
I want to tell you a bit about Shami. So Shami is here with us. She's a legal practitioner and a managing partner of Phillips Law. And why we invited Shami is because of her expertise. She advises professionals, entrepreneurs, and corporates on governance, business structuring, and risk management. And we thought we could sit down with Shami because beyond her legal practice, she's actively involved in leadership and governance initiatives. And some of the advices that she gives is on sustainable practices in business. This is the reason why we have brought her today, so that she assists us with the questions that you have been always asking: tax, ZIMRA, trust. What is really happening in this country? Those cross-border clients of ours, entrepreneurs, why are we always running away from ZIMRA? Is that the lifestyle that we want? Yet we are saying at the Entrepreneur's Corner, you are the ones that are making Zimbabwe tick, and you need to continue in sustainable businesses. I'm coming to you, Shami, today. You know, Shami, like our viewers have been asking us the tax issues. And I think the burning questions have been, we see tax as something that affects our businesses. And for them, at what stage, as I'm an entrepreneur, should I start thinking about these tax issues? And whilst I'm thinking about these tax issues, what are the compliance issues that I need to take cognizance of? And at what stage of my business, really, should I start to worry about ZIMRA coming after me?
Right. So, Doc, thank you very much again for having me. I will start by saying that I'm not here representing ZIMRA, right?
Thank you.
I'm just here to assist so that we work with each other to see what we can do to run our businesses better in terms of tax compliance.
Sure.
So, to start with, the point at which you must start thinking about tax is at the point that you set up the business. Right. A lot of us, I think we're setting up our businesses and then the compliance catches us later, at a later stage. But I think we're here having this conversation because we're saying that we want business owners that care about tax compliance right from the beginning. So at the point that you register your company, the next thing you must do soon after registering the company is going into the ZIMRA system and making sure that you generate a TIN, which is the specific number that is assigned by ZIMRA when you register your business for tax purposes in the system. So that is the point you must start thinking about tax, and then you take it from there.
Okay, but Shami, we are sitting here, we've got our entrepreneurs who are saying, even registering that company can be an issue. What if I'm just a sole trader? I'm a cross-border woman who is just going out there in South Africa, in Tanzania, in Zambia. And when I'm crossing the border, ZIMRA is always waiting for us. What should I be doing at that stage? Maybe I haven't registered that company for me to get the TIN number.
Yeah. So I think that's the mindset that we need to get out of, in terms of I'm just a trader, I'm just a this, I'm just a that, right? Because ultimately what you're doing is a real business. You are adding value to the economy of Zimbabwe. You're adding value to your family. So you mustn't look at it as I'm just a small business. And a lot of the times we think that you don't need compliance because you are a small business or you're just a trader, so to speak. But you will find that there are a lot of facets of how we operate now that require tax compliance. So, for example, if you want to bid for a tender, if you want to register a case in the High Court, you're going to find yourself interacting with a lot of systems that are saying, "What's your TIN? What's your ZIMRA number?" So there are a lot of things that you're then not going to be able to do going forward if you do not at least take that compliance step at this stage.
Wow, you are hearing it for yourselves, entrepreneurs. We are here so that we grow sustainable business. And like Shami is saying, it's true. We have the fiscal survey of, I think the latest is the 2022 one, which is actually saying 60% of Zimbabwe's GDP is being contributed by small to medium enterprises of Zimbabwe. And that's a lot for our contribution that we are doing to the economy of the nation. And these conversations make us to be the big companies that we are always admiring and looking at. And we are saying we are proudly Zimbabweans, and we need to be able to give Zimbabweans what belongs to them and what is coming out of them as Zimbabweans. And Shami, many entrepreneurs, they feel overwhelmed by tax compliance requirements. Let me get there. What are the systems or habits that small businesses should put in place to make compliance easier and even less stressful for them?
Right. So I think before you even get to that, let's talk about the steps that you take, right, to become tax compliant in the first place. Right. We've said that you must register in the system to get your TIN, and then you must know which taxes apply to your business. There are quite a few, and like you rightly said, it is overwhelming. I think even for people that have been dealing with it for a long time, it is something that can be overwhelming. But you have to know the different types of taxes that are applicable to your business before you even put systems, so you know what systems to apply to the taxes that apply to you. So you're looking at things like payee. I think that's the most common thing that would apply to.
That's pay as you earn.
Pay as you earn, which is tax that's paid on salaries that you pay to your employees. Make sure they're in the system and you make those deductions from their salaries. You're looking at things like VAT, but VAT has a minimum threshold of 25,000 per annum as your turnover. So that may not apply to everyone. And then you're looking at income tax, which is applied to the business itself and is 25% of your turnover. So you need to know that those are the taxes, I think, that are mostly applicable to the business. And then once you know and understand that these are the taxes that you have, you now need to have record keeping systems, right? We need to make sure that things are being recorded. I've always admired certain people that I see, like a tuck shop, they'll have a counter book and they're meticulous with their record keeping. It's not anything fancy, but they keep, they can keep track of the information. So what more with you who's, running a much bigger sort of enterprise, you need to have systems for record keeping. So you need to make sure that all your information is there together on a monthly basis, right? Your monthly bookkeeping is important. So there are things that you can do for yourself in terms of collecting and recording information, and then you get a professional to then assist with the actual processing of the tax side of things at the end of the day. So you are, now there's so many cloud-based accounting systems that are online that you can use. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. You can generate information on Excel. So you may not even need to go as far, because I know cost is a big factor for businesses when they're thinking about how to set up these things. So you don't have to go too far in terms of, let me pay for this, let me get this fancy system. Just an Excel sheet can help you keep track of the movement of the money, of the flow of the money in your business. But I think setting up those systems right at the beginning helps you in the future if you work like that.
Shami, you are giving us the information that we always encourage our entrepreneurs to really be meticulous about it. Record keeping, you can vouch for us. Yes, we have invited Shami today, and your very own lawyer. advisor, governance advisor, is telling you the basic importance of financial literacy that we always talk about on this show. Keep that counter book. Use that Excel to keep your records. And Shami, you talked about something that caught my hearing, to say you register for VAT. Nevertheless, your sales need to get to 25,000 per annum. So what does it mean to me, an entrepreneur whose annual revenue is not yet there? Should I then register for VAT in that circumstance, or I'll only register for it only after that I've taken my revenue to that size?
Okay, so there are two things to that. You can voluntarily register for VAT, even if you don't meet the threshold, right? But the thing is, registering for VAT then brings in the requirement to fiscalize. And fiscalizing means that you're getting the machine directly from ZIMRA or from an authorized agent that supplies these machines, and you're supposed to use that machine to generate your invoices for your business. And the reason why ZIMRA does that is that they want information on your invoices to go directly to ZIMRA. They're not waiting for you to declare by yourself. So the machine is linked to ZIMRA. So that's what we mean when we say a fiscalized invoice, because it generates the information and sends it directly to ZIMRA. So by the time you are now filing your taxes, ZIMRA already knows. They've got the information already. So it then brings up that that additional requirement. So I would say if your turnover has not reached that level, you don't need to do it. But once you reach that level, 100%, you have to.
But I also would ask, then does it mean if I'm not VAT registered and I don't register for this VAT, does it mean that I don't qualify for a tax clearance? Because ZIMRA is coming to our boutiques in town and asking for a tax clearance. And what does it mean if I don't register for VAT myself, even if my sales are below 25,000 and a tax clearance is being required? What's really the difference between VAT registration and getting a tax clearance from ZIMRA?
Right. Okay. No, I understand where you're coming from. Right. So for you to be able to get a tax clearance, it's not particularly tied to VAT, right? So your tax clearance is given based on your declarations of your income. Right. So just how much you're making as a business, whatever money you're getting in, money that's going out. So that's the information that you provide to ZIMRA. So when I said you need your monthly bookkeeping to be in order, that's the information that you're providing to ZIMRA. So they're not looking at your threshold for VAT yet if you don't reach 25,000. They're just looking at the flow of the money. And excuse me, they're looking at the flow of you. Once you then reach the $25,000 threshold, it becomes an additional requirement. But for those that are under the threshold, they don't have to worry about that. They just need to focus on their income, what they're doing, making sure their records are in order, and that they're making their submissions in the intervals that are required by ZIMRA.
Yes, viewers, you are hearing this for yourself. So we are being taught here the issue of a tax clearance. Yes, you need that tax clearance, but it does not necessarily mean you need to have registered for VAT. It has been explained. We are going to take a short break and we come back again as we continue in this discussion of ZIMRA and tax issues for our small businesses, so that we always stay compliant and our businesses are sustainable and they grow whilst they are also compliant.
What if your home you've been dreaming about is closer than you think? You don't need thousands and thousands of US dollars for you to build your dream home. All you need is the right financial partner for you to get started. We at Money Finance, we have the micro housing loans designed for people just like you. Whether you are laying your first brick, adding a room, or finally finishing your dream home, Money Finance is here for you every step of the way. with flexible amounts, affordable repayment terms, and quick approvals. Your dream home is no longer just a dream. Build your future, build your legacy, build your home with MoneyMart Finance.
MoneyMart Finance, creating wealth, changing lives through digital means.
Welcome back again, viewers, to the show, the Entrepreneur's Corner, where we talk everything and anything about our businesses, which are growing from small, medium into the large corporates that we attend to. Please don't forget to click that subscription button for this show and make sure you like. And also, we really love your comments because your comments shape where the show has to go. When you ask us the questions, we come back, we look for those who are experts in those issues, in those subjects, so that they come and teach us and be able to make sure that our businesses continue in a sustainable manner as we encourage on the show. Welcome back, Shami.
Thank you, Doc.
We are continuing this conversation, Shami. We are entrepreneurs here. We really feel overwhelmed with tax compliance requirements. But what we know and we understand is that there are implications, legal and financial risks in these issues, especially ignoring tax obligations or even delaying the compliance. But somehow we are just, procrastinating, saying, as long as ZIMRA has not caught up with me, maybe I'm still safe. Please elaborate for us on that.
Yeah, you know what? With the way the tax system is moving and the things that ZIMRA are doing, no one is going to be safe at the end of the day. That's all you need to know. But and I think, like with anything, once you put in systems and you get used to doing it, it gets easier as you go along. But to come to your question about what are some of the risks that you're running if you're not compliant, I think the biggest one is penalties. And that's a big thing because the principle with ZIMRA is pay now, argue later. So once ZIMRA says you owe the money, you've got to pay it.
Please hold on there. Did you get that, viewers? Pay now and argue later. Now, because we are used to, buy now and pay later. It's the other way around. So for ZIMRA, it's pay now and argue later.
Right? Especially if you want your tax clearance. So you find yourself in a situation where a penalty has been assessed and ZIMRA says you owe them this much amount of money, so you've got to pay it. And then only after that can you then go through ZIMRA channels to then appeal or then show that it was an incorrect assessment. But at that point, you'd have already taken the money out of the business. So that's a very big risk that you run. If you're not compliant with your taxes. The other thing that ZIMRA can do is that they can garnish your accounts. And what that means is that they can have access to your business accounts directly and take the money from there directly. So any money that goes into your account, any sales that you make means that you're now just working for ZIMRA. The money is just going to ZIMRA. And that's no way to run a business, because at the end of the day, you're not going to see the profit if you're always paying penalties and ZIMRA garnishes your account and the money is going directly to ZIMRA. And another obvious one is that, of course, you're not going to get your tax clearance certificate simply because you're not compliant. And what that does is, I think I said a little bit about it before, that you lose out on opportunities. You are not able to bid for tenders. You're not able to, and it may not be anything as big as a tender. If sometimes just supplying to a company, to serious companies, requires a tax clearance certificate. They want to see that they're dealing with a legitimate business that has got its compliance in order. So when you're sending your company registration documents to say, my name is Shamiso, I'm a legal practitioner, I provide legal services, they also asking for my income tax clearance, my personal one. They're also asking for the firm's tax clearance. And I have to be able to show those documents so that they know that the person that they're dealing with is legitimate and they know what they're doing. and also that person follows the law, because sometimes they don't want to do business with companies that that are not doing things legally. So sometimes you miss out on opportunities simply because you don't have something as simple as a tax clearance. Yeah. So there's nothing that stops you from making the application for a tax clearance, because even if you are if you're running at a loss, if there's no money in the business, ZIMRA is not going to assess any tax on your business. So the key thing is declare, is to put the is to provide the information. And once you're able to show that, look, I've not made money, this is what's happened in this quarter or in this period, you get your tax clearance certificate. So those are the things that you need to be doing to make sure that you're compliant, and make sure that you don't miss out on opportunities that would help you grow your business at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm so hearing you very well, Shami, and it's something that really talks to me personally, because we are saying we need our entrepreneurs to be able to have sustainable businesses, and sometimes it's not worth it to continue to be just small little nyana business, and opportunities only knock on those who are prepared and who have everything set right. As I always say to you, entrepreneurs, an opportunity is not an opportunity if you are not prepared for it. So often we say, Dapota. Guys, it's not about that little miss of the opportunity. It's you having to be supposed to take hold of the opportunity and run with it and make sure that that business grows and it grows with you. And we are being advised here to say, those opportunities, when they knock, there are simple things that you need to be already prepared with, like the tax clearance. And I'm hearing, well, Shami is telling us that, sometimes you're even making losses. Let ZIMRA know that you're making those losses. What they want is declarations. And I heard clearly on the financial risk. Imagine if your accounts are garnished, especially the entrepreneurs that are running schools these days. I know other entrepreneurs, Shami, are saying it's a cash economy. I don't even have a bank account. You understand? So maybe ZIMRA will not catch me today because I don't have a bank account. Yeah. But look, we have, for those serious businesses, and like what Shami is talking about, of making sure you are prepared for those opportunities. Truly speaking, you need to have a bank account, because big companies want to pay through the bank, because they are doing businesses through the financial system of the nation. And for our entrepreneurs who are running those little private schools, truly, most parents want an account number to pay for school fees. And you also need to be tax compliant even in running those schools. So make sure you do that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it adds to your legitimacy as a business, because I can't imagine going to my child's school and they tell me that, we only take cash. It's already a red flag.
It's a red flag
in terms of, so what kind of enterprise what kind of entity are you running here? What are you hiding something? What is it that's actually really going on there? So it does add a layer of legitimacy to how you're operating by simply having something as as basic as a tax clearance. So you need to run your small business like the big business you want to become, because I don't think you learn compliance when your turnover is now 5 million. You learn it at $500.
True.
Yeah.
And this is so exciting for me when you're telling our entrepreneurs that they learn compliance from the moment they start. It's even there. Most of our viewers are Christians. Even God himself is needing that 10% of $1.
100%. It's biblical.
It's biblical. You cannot start declaring your 10% when it has come $1,000. Not at all. It starts that low. 10% of that you have, that's what's being required. And the one who has paid 10% of $1 is very equal to the person that who has paid 10% to $1 million, because they've all paid a 10%. But as we move on, Shami, Some business owners realize years later that they've missed registrations, returns, or tax payments. Look, we are bringing this subject to our entrepreneurs today, and someone is sitting there and they are wondering, I've missed all this. It's something that I did not know. So what should I do today? What options are available to my business if I want to regularize my affairs before ZIMRA and to take this enforcement action with me today? And I'm thinking I cannot change the name of my company today to say, let me open a new company. Now everyone knows Manmat Finance. It has become a brand, right? And if I try to change the name Manmat Finance to Ethel Finance, my customers will also get confused because I'm trying to comply with ZIMRA now that I've gotten this knowledge today. Yeah. What should I do without me changing the operations and the name of my company that I've been trading with?
Right. So, you know what? The good thing is I do think ZIMRA is alive to the way our economy is set up in terms of the informality of the economy. So we, as entrepreneurs, we are catching up. We are starting to get our registrations in place and our registrations in order. So ZIMRA actually every now and again actually publishes notices for voluntary disclosure of taxes. So the last one I think must have been notice 25 of 2026. And the deadline for disclosure is 30 June, I believe it is. So what they're doing is saying, come forward by yourself before we start coming to town to look to go through boutiques one by one and saying,
will they not then penalize me if I volunteer?
So the goal with voluntary disclosure is to get rid of the penalties. So if you disclose voluntarily and they do find that your information is legitimate, they will waive all penalties and interest that would have ordinarily been applicable. So the key thing is to go to ZIMRA by yourself and volunteer, and they will waive the
penalties.
They will waive the penalties.
But now, Shami, you are saying the deadline is 30 June, and it's about, it's a few days to 30 June when I'm listening to this. Or I've got a viewer who is now watching this episode in August. They've got to know about this episode in August, yet this voluntary notice has already lapsed. So if there's no notice, can I still go and volunteer? Or what happens if there's no notice of volunteering?
If there's no amnesty for penalties and such. Yeah. So like I said, I've seen ZIMRA publish these periodically in terms of just making sure that entrepreneurs have an opportunity, but it also applies to individuals. They have an opportunity to go to ZIMRA and do their voluntary disclosures. If you do it under the notice, then of course they're waiving penalties and interest. But on any other day, you still can go. They actually have very specific forms and such and processes for people that are coming to volunteer the information. I know it sounds a little bit difficult. It's a little bit unbelievable. Like, why would I go and put myself on the radar, so to speak,
exactly,
to ZIMRA? But if you've built a brand, that means something, because the name of your company has value and that sort of thing. So that's what you then kind of have to weigh in terms of, so do I want to sacrifice this brand that I've built simply because I don't have a tax clearance? So now I have to register a new entity and start from zero, as if I've not been operating. So there is still an opportunity to go and do the voluntary disclosure and regularize, even if there's no notice. What happens though at that point is that you may then have penalties assessed, or interest if it turns out that you owe money to ZIMRA at that point. Yeah. So if you then realize that, you've missed registrations, you've missed some deadlines, it's also important to engage a professional who can then assist with that, because they also know how to navigate and do the disclosures properly in the most tax effective way. So you won't be evading tax, but you're just managing how it's done, and you certainly need a professional to assist with that, especially if you're dealing with historical information. So I wouldn't advise that you just go to ZIMRA and take yourself to the slaughter and say, I haven't been declaring. Yeah,
I had the entrepreneur's corner.
yeah. They said I must just come. No. And I think
There you go, viewers. You've heard it for yourself. It is our desire that entrepreneurs do things right. Like we always say on the show, we do not know everything in this life. What we do not know, we look for those who are experts in that particular industry or in that particular lane. And we go sit down with them, we ask for assistance, and we get the help that we want. Sometimes, dear entrepreneurs, the issue is not about the cost even of taking that consultant to be able to help you in clearing or making sure that you are compliant with the tax man. The cost can be so very little compared to the cost of losing business because your brand is already known. So you really need to sit down and weigh the options and make proper decisions without even putting feelings into it. These are rational decisions to count the cost. What does it cost me to let go of this brand that is already known? And how much is it costing just a consultant to come and make things right and continue with my brand and even making more income? Let's take a break for now and we come back in the final session of the episode.
Say hello to a smarter, faster way to get instant answers with MoneyMart Finance. Meet Libby, your 24/7 virtual assistant, ready to help you every step of the way. Need financial guidance? Looking to apply for a loan? Libby has you covered instantly. No queues, no hold music, no branch visits, just a simple WhatsApp message anytime, anywhere. It's fast, secure, and incredibly convenient. Everything you need is right in your hands. Step in the future of finance today, save our number and send a hi and let Libby take you from there. MoneyMart Finance, empowering your dreams one conversation at a time.
MoneyMart Finance, creating wealth, changing lives through digital means.
Welcome back again, viewers. We are talking tax issues today. And before we go on, we are saying make sure that you like these episodes, you share, you subscribe, you comment, and ring that notification bell so that every Wednesday you don't miss any episode on these rich conversations for the entrepreneurs, especially in our nation of Zimbabwe. We are believing we are also getting attention from entrepreneurs across Africa. As we say, African problems are cousins. So when you hear what we are saying and the challenges that we are facing as entrepreneurs in Zimbabwe, you can even find out from your jurisdiction to say, what does it happen exactly in your jurisdiction? Because tax issues are worldwide. Every nation has got its own way of handling tax. So please make sure that when you get the insights here, you also apply them from wherever that you are watching. Shami, we are back again.
Yes, Stock.
Most of our clients, especially as MoneyMart Finance, are cross-border traders. And these are women. Women are working so hard. Even the statistics are telling us 53% of our SMEs, entrepreneurs in Zimbabwe, are women. And they are, waking up early morning, catching that early bus, traveling midnight, making sure that they make ends meet. But there are issues that are happening, especially to them. I want to ask, I know you advise clients, especially involved in importing and exporting goods. Right. My thrust is actually going on those who are importing, because these are most of our clients. Yes, we have those who are exporting, and we're encouraging that we take our Zimbabwean products out there so that we increase our exports. But the importers are the ones that are so many. What are the most common customs and border-related mistakes that our traders are making, and they are now finding it very painful to run these businesses that have been making them being able even to raise families, paying school fees, paying those rentals because they've imported and they've come back home and they are making a living out of such a business.
Yeah, I hear you, Doc. That's a hot one, hey? Because it affects so many people in the manner that they're running their businesses. And one thing I know about Zimbabweans is that we'll always find a way to do something or to get it done. And what's happened in that area is that it had become so difficult to deal with the taxman at the border. It had become a big task because you also had issues of corruption. The system itself was not working. Sometimes it would be down. And then just the process itself in terms of how do I even do this was, obscure. So people found a way of bringing things into Zimbabwe. That's how we have, just put it on the bus or just give such and such a person, they know how to bring it in. But what's happening is that because that is a shortcut. To be fair.
Exactly.
It is a shortcut.
And once you're there, I'm sorry to cut you there. Like what you're saying, we actually have people who had made businesses of, they call themselves Malaicha. In the language to say, I'm the one who know how to cross the border for you. Relax, I'll bring the things.
Bring it,
And at the end of the day, Malaicha is not bringing these things to me for free. No. I'm paying something Malaicha, right? And I was sitting and asking when I was liaising with some of my clients in Money Finance to say, how much are you paying Malaicha? If you are going to pay directly to the government through taxes, through declarations, is it not even half of what you have paid Malaicha?
Is it not the same or maybe even a little bit less sometimes?
Yes, sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it could be like that. But tell us those mistakes that our traders are making and why are they running away from that? Yes.
Because we just become used to that system. So what's happening right now is that ZIMRA is not introducing anything new. They're simply enforcing what's always been in existence. They're just a little bit stricter about it now, but also because I think they have fixed some of the issues at the border. I know it's still difficult. It's not without its challenges, but they're simply enforcing what has always been there. But some of the issues that you then have when we start saying, oh, my goods have been seized, which is the biggest issue that you have, is that your goods have been under-declared, right? So you under-declare the value of the goods because obviously you want to bring the duty down.
Exactly.
That is payable. Sometimes you have incorrect classifications on the forms. Just filling in the form itself sometimes can be, a bit of a task. So sometimes if you classify something incorrectly, ZIMRA might take it as if you were trying to do something underhanded. But sometimes just a knowledge thing, maybe just also legitimately didn't know. For those that go and import their items themselves and don't go through a middleman, and then so. When you're then coming with your goods, you need to know what documentation to have. You need to prove where you bought the items from and to show the value. Because sometimes, like I said, if you undervalue them, ZIMRA is going to raise issue. And sometimes it's as simple as going on the internet for ZIMRA to say, but this toothpaste does not cost what you said. So it's just such a simple mistake that you can make that costs you a lot more ultimately. And sometimes if you get a clearing agent because you think, oh, you know what, let me get somebody who's we've been talking about hire a professional who's an expert in that area. If you don't know how to do it yourself, you might get an agent who's bogus. Or an agent who themselves don't have their tax clearances in order. So your goods can be taken by ZIMRA because your agent does not have their paperwork in order, and then you end up having to go to speak to ZIMRA directly to be able to then to get those goods released. And this is something that has happened. For a client of mine who had goods that were brought in a bulk storage container, and the agent had his issues, so the whole container was taken. So my client had to go to ZIMRA and say, "This is my portion, this is my part." And remember, we said pay now, argue later. So he paid. And then we only started arguing later and appealing and whatnot. So those are the situations you find yourselves in as well, if you then also don't use the correct people to assist you with that.
Shami, we are getting so much from you on this episode. And I can imagine I declaring toothpaste to say I bought it for 50 cents. Yet the person who was just before me is a truthful person. He has declared and produced a receipt of that toothpaste going for $2.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's one of those things. But you talked about your client bringing in a container of goods and using a bogus agent, and it was an issue. You made me to ask this question. So what rights do I have if my goods are detained or seized at the border? What legal rights do I have as an entrepreneur? And what practical steps should I take immediately? Because sometimes we are just giving up and walking away. Yet maybe, in all honesty, it was just because of this bogus agent that I've used, and I've been truthful. And I didn't even know, I had not done that due diligence on this agent. And I'm so genuine. Do I have any rights in such a circumstance? And in any way, if my goods are seized, the bus has been stopped and they're saying already no more going. And now there's ZAC in those roads and everything and everyone else. Do I have rights as a citizen? If I've been working, even trying to be compliant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You do have rights and you've got legal remedies, but I will qualify this and say for genuine cases. Because I can't imagine a genuine person who was just trying to do things correctly, then walking away and giving up. I think the ones that end up just saying, you know what, let them keep the goods. They also know that they were, whatever they'd been doing was also problematic. So it's a little bit difficult to then now go to the taxman and say, oh, but I want my goods back, because they were essentially being smuggled into the country. So if you were doing it properly and your goods are seized for whatever reason, right? The number one thing is that ZIMRA is never going to give you the goods back right there at the bus. There is no point in fighting them in real time on the ground, because that's actually just going to cause you more problems. So they let them take the good, but let them give you an inventory of what they've taken. They will give you a seizure notice. They will write it down, obtain documentation. Because to start with, they must identify themselves. You must know who it is that you were dealing with, which station they're from, and what it is they were actually doing and looking for, right? They do have to introduce themselves. The same way the police have to, and they stop you. You can't, because how do we know it was a legitimate ZIMRA stop? Because it could be something underhanded that's happening at that point. So you've got a right to that information. You've got a right to know who it is that stopped you and took your goods. They're supposed to give you information. They're supposed to give you a seizure notice. They're supposed to give you an inventory of what it is that they have taken and what their value is. So that's the documentation you then take, and then you go to ZIMRA, and then you speak to the officer who would have been assigned that case to now bring your explanations. But you must also be aware that your explanations may not result in zero penalties. It might just result in a reduction.
Okay.
Right. So and that can be frustrating, because you'll speak to the officer. They might say write something, make your representations, and then you explain that I genuinely did not know. But ignorance is not a defense. Ignorance of the law is not a defense. Yeah. So you then have to engage with the officer. If you're not happy with whatever they would have done, then you can appeal to the commissioner of ZIMRA. Some things escalate into the courts, I guess, I suppose, depending on the value of what it is you're dealing with. But those are the channels that you then take, but only after you make sure that you get the proper information. Because if you don't get the records that I mentioned, for you to now go to ZIMRA and start following up on that is going to be an absolute nightmare. You're not going to be able to track your goods. You're not going to be able to identify the person that took that action with your goods. So you have to make sure that during that seizure, you demand information. You've got a right to that information so that you can then follow the appropriate channels.
Yeah, I'm really getting this. And what I'm getting, Shami, is that we don't need to panic. Especially if you're clean, you don't need to panic and you don't need to put emotions. You start fighting with ZIMRA offices. Calm down. Identify people, talk to them nicely. Ask for the documentation. Ask even them for the process. So what do I do from here? Because I will need at one time to recover my goods. If I'm going to pay a certain penalty because of ignorance, then let it be. But at the end of the day, I need to recover my goods and continue in business, because you can't let all that loss of capital just to go down the drain. And whilst we are there now, Shami, yes, many of our traders are complaining about the inspections and enforcement activities occurring, especially after goods have already passed through the border. I told you we are meeting ZIMRA officers, we are meeting ZAC along the way, but I've already crossed the border and the border has said, all is well. You can go ahead and proceed with your journey. Before I get even to Harare, there's a stop in Masvingo. I'm getting stopped and inspection is being done once again. Our question that we are getting from viewers are that from a legal perspective, what rights and obligations we as traders have during such inspections, especially after passing through the border?
Yeah, you know what, and I know that's a frustrating situation to be in, like you said, because you've passed through the border, everything has been cleared, it's above board, and then now you have to deal with another stop where you're being asked for information. But what's happened is that things still leak through the border. So the legitimate people are not the targets of these inspections, right? So if your things are in order, when you get to a stop and ZIMRA says, would like to see your documentation and your things are cleared, you have nothing to, or you should not have nothing to worry about, rather, let me say. But what they're targeting are the people that still find a way to get their goods in without the proper documentation. So that's what those stops, unfortunately, they then also affect the people that have the information in order and have gone through the proper channels. But as long as you've got your documentation, your obligation is to comply with the instructions that they're giving. Do not fight them and say, oh, but I cleared my things. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, and I need to proceed with my journey. Look, but you're taking the whole bus back.
Right.
Why don't you release me?
Personally,
because give me my goods and I get another lift and I proceed.
Yeah. So,
but they're not doing that, Shami. They're taking the whole bus back to the border. Do I have any rights there when my things are clean?
Yeah, because what they're supposed to do is to separate the ones that they have an issue with. But sometimes I think why they're taking the whole bus is because the driver is complicit. The driver and the assistants,
yes,
they're the ones that are complicit in using that vehicle for transportation of illegal goods. And ZIMRA is allowed to seize the vehicle itself. So unfortunately, you then find yourself having to go back with the bus. But it just means you can find your own means of transportation, but they are allowed to seize the actual vehicle that has been used in the commission of the crime. So they're not just seizing the illegal goods that they would have found, they're also taking the vehicle and the people that are facilitating. That's why the whole bus is taken. So now it looks like it's just the whole bus that's going for no reason, but you get caught up in it. But once you go and you clear the issue in terms of, but my goods are fine, those ones should be released at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot, Shami, and we are learning. We are so privileged to be learning as young entrepreneurs and getting this information earlier as we are doing our businesses. I think you can agree with me, dear viewers, that time is not permitting for these conversations, but there was a burning issue that we had. As entrepreneurs, we have been advised to put up trust for our tax management, and things have not been, especially in the last days, they are now sounding as if it's a totally different issue altogether. But we cannot continue that in this in this episode. Allow me to bring back again Shami in our next episode as we look in these issues of tax management through trusts. You know, we are registering our trusts and thinking that we are managing our taxes, but it seems as if what we are hearing today has not been so. So, viewers, I would ask Sham just to give us parting shots for just this episode as we invite her again to deal with our other issues as entrepreneurs.
Right. So I think what you can take away, or what you should take away from this conversation, I think I said it earlier in this conversation, is that run your business like the business that you want to become. Do not wait for a certain threshold or a certain amount of money for you to start becoming compliant and making sure that you meet your tax obligations. Once you set up systems and you do it properly, it becomes easier as you go along. So I do want to encourage the viewers, all entrepreneurs, to make sure that they're compliant with their tax obligations. It goes a long way in helping your business grow.
Thank you so much, Shami. It was so a very huge opportunity having you here. And viewers, please don't forget, Shami said, pay now and argue later for whatever penalty that you are given by ZIMRA. I think it's
That's what you caught.
That's what I had to call there.
Yeah.
But as we close down the show, viewers, please don't forget to make sure that you like the show, you share with others the information that we are sharing here, and you subscribe. Please just click that subscription button, and also the button that will remind you to say, oh, it's another Wednesday again. We are sitting in that very corner as entrepreneurs. We will never get out of a corner. Every stage of the growth of the business will come with its own issues and its own problems. So we're always in a corner, but these corners can be very well managed, especially if we have knowledge. Bye, and see you in the next episode.